our session. Go live or you're effed. Unfortunately, we were censored. Actually, show of hands. How many of you guys have live streaming as a part of your strategy, as a part of your daily activities, as a part of something that you do? All right, it's about half of you. How many of you do not at this point? How many of you are concerned? The market in a super strong fashion. And in 2017 of March, YouTube ad revenues dropped 40% on average for a large number of creators, and up to 100% full demonetization for some. And in early 2018, Facebook changed their algorithm, surfacing less publisher content, and it became more of a pay-to-play sort of format. Twitch discovery continues to be really difficult. How many of you guys are on Twitch? Raise your hand. A number of you. How many of you are planning on being on Twitch? Raise your hand. It's a growing number every day. And platform diversification is becoming a harder and harder thing. And just a show of hands, how many of you are on more than 3 social platforms? Raise your hand. That's almost all of you guys. So the question is, how do you equalize all of this, right? As you guys know, live is effectively the new great equalizer. If you look at it from a Facebook perspective, when you go live, you show up on top of the deck. On YouTube, when you go live, you show up on top of the deck. On Twitter and Periscope, show up on top of the deck. On Twitch, same thing. You get shown up to all your followers and notified. So the question is, how do you take advantage of this, right? So let's take a look at this from a day of a creator. How many of you are creators in here? Raise your hand. All right, so tell me if this kind of resonates for you, right? 6 a.m., you get up for coffee. 6:30 a.m., you go live on Twitch if you're a gamer. You check your email a little bit, you check your Instagram, and then you've got Facebook and YouTube, which all of you guys have. And you edit this live stream so you can upload it to those locations. Then you publish, check Discord, record new VOD content, check email. By the end of the day, your day's done, right? And you have to ask yourself, how much revenue did I just generate today? And also, was this a great use of my time? So one of the things we did is fundamentally, try to figure out how to solve creators' problems. And at the end of the day, the rule of thumb is this. It's got to be easy to be able to create content easily, go live, and be able to sort of distribute to where all your fans are. Right? So that's what we did with launching a product called MobCam. So if you guys have a chance to do it, we're doing a sort of beta release right now. And let me give you a quick sort of sizzle to show you what it's all about.
As you teach, explore, and play. But they're spread out all over social platforms. And it's a lot of work for you to stream everywhere all the time. So let's make live streaming easy. With MobCam, you can broadcast live to all your fans at once, no matter where they are. One tap, and you're live. MobCam's unified chat allows you to see what all your viewers are saying in one easy-to-read window. And best of all, MobCam is 100% free. Connect with your community and share your life as it's happening. MobCam's here to help keep it simple, so you can focus on doing what you love. Download the app. Go live everywhere.
We have a star-studded cast for you guys today. One of the things we wanted to really do is to make sure that you guys get a lot of value out of the panel here. What we've done is assembled a group of folks that are sort of tops in their industries, and more importantly, have great points of views. So let me introduce you. So we have John Brentz, who is both a creator, like a leading creator, as well as a talent manager for many of the for YouTube gamers and stars. We've got Wally Walbacher, who is Group 9, and a publisher with huge followings and has a huge amount of experience around live. We've got John Kroof, who is from Creator IQ, one of the industry leaders in measurement across social platforms. As well as, I'd like to introduce you to Amber Tiana, one of the fastest rising stars in social.
That was embarrassing. That's not enthusiastic at all.
Yeah. So, guys, thank you so much for joining. I'm really excited to have you here. One of the things I'd love to do is, why don't we just do a quick round around the horn of what everybody's background is, and what you think live has impacted your career and life so far.
So hi everybody, John Brents, Director of Talent Fullscreen, where I represent a ton of top creators. Before I joined Fullscreen, I was a full-time YouTube content creator with 3 groups, Cyanide and Happiness, Saturday Morning Breakfast Cereal, and 5 Second Films, if any of you remember that. I know the kids downstairs have no idea who I am, but that is fine. Live has honestly changed my entire outlook on the space, and we're going to talk about that here with a few questions, but honestly, every single one of my clients are looking at live as the solution for their future, especially when it comes to their workflow, and ultimately their passion sets.
And I'm Wally. I've been in the digital space for quite a while. You did the MCN game, was at Maker for a hot minute, then CDS, which is now Studio 71, really learning the influencer game, particularly around audience development, best practices, and how do you actually grow your audience on the different platforms. Currently, I'm at Group 9, where I am sort of sitting on the West Coast side of our Central Insights team, across the board of all of our main brands, Now This, The Dodo, Thrillist, Seeker. And we do all sorts of stuff. And live has been something I have been bullish about since the start. I remember back when Justin TV made the switch over to Twitch, and we were playing video games at that time, and we thought, oh, this is a terrible idea. We were very dumb. And yeah, I think it's been important, and it continues to be important as platforms understand that live engagement is a very powerful thing on a conversational sort of social platform like we're all on across the board.
Hey, this is John Kroof. I'm head of growth at Creator IQ. This is actually my 6th Vidcon, but the first time they let me speak, so moving up in the world. I've always been on the technology side in this space. I started off at a company called Tubular Labs very early on, helping to quantify the value that creators and brand partners bring to brand campaigns. And continuing on that with Creator IQ, we are pretty agnostic across all social platforms and online forms of distribution. We work with some of the largest brands, publishers, and agencies in the world, and they look to us to measure, and create standards across all platforms to truly be able to create an understanding holistically of how their brand campaigns are performing. And live is very exciting because it's a really new format that brands are trying to understand, they want to participate in. There's obviously some hesitations in terms of controlling the content, and they work with platforms like ours to better collaborate with their creator partners and be able to get involved in that landscape.
Hello, my name is Amber Tiana, and I started making content in 2005, and I did not upload it onto YouTube. Tisk tisk. I did everything from copy, learning how to write, shoot, edit, produce. Unfortunately, I did all of this in Hawaii, which is a small island in the middle of the ocean, for those of you who don't know. The glass ceiling approached very, very quickly, and I decided that I was going to move to California to follow my dreams. It's actually a hashtag you can check out on Instagram. And when I got here, I saw that, wow, I really, really, really should have started uploading to YouTube when I started making these videos. Maybe it would have done something. So when I caught the whiff of live, I was not going to make that mistake again. I was not going to miss that train because I saw what happened with YouTube. So I decided to go ahead and start going live. My first broadcasting platform was Periscope. I worked through a couple different ones through beta. Now I have 500,000 followers on live.me, which is one of the leading live broadcasting platforms. I also create live content for other platforms, for other creators as well, offering consultations and building shows up from the bottom. So if you have a product, if you have a business, if you have a personality, if you have a message, what I do is I work with individuals one-on-one on how to take that and come up with a creative and also informative and profitable show, what times you should go live, who your audience is, etc., etc. Also, I still broadcast myself. I have a show called The Real Tea with Amber T, also a show called Paradise Privilege, and if you guys want to like check out that stuff, you can swat to me afterwards. But yeah, right now it's really excited because I get to do this full time, and I was right. Like, didn't want to miss the train the second time, and it was the right decision. So good job for being in here. You guys are stepping into the future for sure.
Amber, I'm a huge fan of what you do, and being able to watch what's happening on the social platforms and seeing the fan reactions, absolutely amazing. One of my favorite things is you're an amazing freestyler.
Oh, no.
So,
freestyle?
Yeah.
Oh, what you talking about? Look this stuff right here. Go ahead, come on out. I see all the people in the room. How you doing, kids? Better get on live so you can get some fans through this. Okay, we talking about steady mobbing. Where the fans? I'm over here like it's hot, cause I'm mobbing like, man, here we go, here we go. I'm like, yo, mush, mush, go ahead and hop on live. Get with my crush. It's early.
Look at that. Holy cow.
And Wally's going to freestyle next.
Nice people. All right. So one of the very first questions, let's just go around the horn. Like, how many social followers do you have? How many social platforms are you on?
For my groups, about 9 million followers across my groups. How many platforms am I on at this point? You name it, I'm probably on it or have experimented with it. I'll just say that.
Wow.
I believe Group 9 right now across all of our brands on all the platforms, we're something like 110 million.
Holy cow.
No biggie.
No.
But that is across a lot of different platforms. I think Facebook is where a lot of our brands have the most presence right now, just because Group 9, the individual brands all started as individual entities, and the Dodo and Now This and Thrillist and Seeker had their own priorities, and Facebook was a big priority for a lot of them. But really, diversification of platform is one of the most important things and one of our core tenets. So if it is a platform that is worth being on, we are exploring it or already on it, including live places, Snapchat, Amazon Prime. You can find Seeker content on Amazon Prime. You should watch it. It's great stuff. Yeah, so it's across the board about 110 million.
Excellent.
So personally, I probably won't comment. My social following is kind of weak. But the Creator IQ platform, our clients actually collectively reach over 80% of all audiences across all the major social platforms. And in addition to that, they're using Musical.ly and Twitch, and a lot more growth on those platforms in the last 6 months. And as brands become much more enthusiastic about live and content, we see that reverberated in our platform.
Great.
Cool. I'm a baby too. It's like 600,000. And then also that's the cross, but a lot of that, but over 518 of that is from my live platform. And what's really, really awesome, I just want to comment about live, is you can really maximize revenue off of a micro audience. It's outstanding. I have people who broadcast full-time and make a living off of it who have less than 10,000 followers on the app. If you have 100 people who really support you, it's good. And what's awesome is they can go ahead and translate to other different platforms. So like I utilize my live to go ahead and funnel people to my Instagram, to my Facebook. I don't use Snapchat because I don't like what they did to Rihanna, and I'm gonna say that again and again and again. So I don't use them anymore. Sorry if you guys are here, you can try to win me back. But yeah, I use pretty much the main ones, I think. I have all of them in my phone just in case, but they haven't been updated. Sorry.
Well, that actually brings up a really good point. Micro audiences and monetization is actually incredibly powerful. So one question, let's start sort of going back this way. How had the YouTube adpocalypse impacted you? How did it impact some of your friends? Folks that you know?
Yeah, well, being in LA, I'm friends with a lot of different creators. Well, not from LA, because Hawaii, I gotta rep that, but I live here. A lot of creators who are on a lot of different platforms, and it's interesting because some of my more OG YouTube friends were like, what are you doing on live? Like, there's no money in that. Like, it's not gonna last, and then it kind of started going like this. And then when Adpocalypse happened, I was just like a shoulder to cry on. I'm like, oh my god, this doesn't affect me at all. I'm so sorry. I know this is horrible for like that whole half of the industry who are like my brothers, sisters, and cousins, but it didn't at all. In fact, I think because so many people, you know, kind of took it and were like, I quit or whatever and started moving over to live, it just gave me more of a boost because it gave it more of like a buzz around it. And I actually got a bunch of new followers, so it helped me.
That's awesome.
Yeah, so I mean, through the perspective of our clients, you know, it's created a much a larger dialogue around brand safety, and you know, there's a lot more concern about where your content is being placed, and so now we see brands moving, you know, a little bit less away from this idea of buying programmatically on YouTube and more getting, you know, partnering directly with content creators and helping to create content that's, you know, integrated and organic, and obviously leveraging live as well as part of the integration strategy. Live's also an incredible way to promote a integrated piece of content on YouTube because you can reach someone, you know, instantly, especially if that content is very ephemeral or it's around a tentpole event.
Would you say that content growth has happened along with the emergence of sort of live across the platforms?
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, what you see, I think Casey Neistat is a great example with his partnerships with Samsung. He leverages every single platform to promote a single piece of branded content. Maybe the tentpole content is on YouTube, right? But he's on Instagram going live to tell people about when that content's about to be uploaded. He's pushing out a tweet, you know, kind of previewing and teasing about that content that's going to happen 2 weeks down the line. And then maybe he's recapping it with an awesome Instagram photo. But, you know, live has become this crucial part of any brand integration playbook because it does things that the other platforms really, you know, can't with static posts.
So I'd say for us, so, you know, a core tenet of Group 9 is of course diversification, and the reason for that is because of, you know, algorithmic changes and different things like that. You know, an adpocalypse really only affects you if you've built your entire business in Google's backyard. And so, you know, that's a core thing about how we build out audiences, is making sure that we are really diversifying that. But sort of my path to Group 9 came through working for a comedy collective called Jash for a few years that got acquired by Group 9. And so that did get affected by the adpocalypse in a very relevant way. So we had a show that we produced called Getting Doug with High, where the comedian Doug Benson, who's known exclusively for smoking marijuana, smokes it with his friends on this show. And it's like an hour-long talk show where they just get high. And of course, that's going to be a very prime adpocalypse, like this thing is going to just get destroyed on monetization, and sure enough, it did. But because we do that show as a live stream and a podcast and the YouTube sort of part of it, when we lost that revenue, we were able to offset that with trying to integrate more into the live and into the podcast, which is essentially the live on-demand audio. You guys know what a podcast is. I don't know why I have to explain it.
Diversified.
Yeah. So it's all about that diversity and not allowing it to really affect you, because if it does affect you, then you've got something fundamentally wrong with your strategy, and you should be working on how do you not let that affect you, as opposed to how do you ride the wave of the algorithms, because you'll ride that wave through your content decisions and your best practices and your optimization. Your business model has to exist independent of those on those independent platforms.
Yeah, I mean, that you hit on the last part there, which is you can't be expectant that a platform will continue to deliver you AdSense revenue or whatever expectation of that. You have to be focused purely on what is the audience you're curating and why should they be watching you, and are they willing to invest in you as a creative. If I'm looking at the folks who are most hit by the adpocalypse, these were folks who were algorithmically gaming the system. These, I mean, if you recall the Spider-Man Elsas of the world and that debacle that happened on the platform, if we look at the era of slime, that was a trend-based cause, which ultimately ended up being resulted in like fetish content, which got demonetized. Even Minecrafters, for example, an enemy in Minecraft is called a creeper. A creeper is also a dude who sits outside my house. So that is getting flagged by the system and being shut down. So when you're looking at building your enterprise in the current model, you need to be thinking about, well, who is the audience that's going to come time and time again and buy the tickets to my show? If I look at Cyanide Happiness, that's a 35 million readership that's coming through. When I run a Kickstarter, we have 8,000 donators that make us our $1 million. It's not a matter of the 35 million, it's a matter of the passionate individuals who come on a regular basis. And that's the power of live, because it's focused on the niche.
That is a great example. So one other question then, like, how much time are you now spending on live content posting versus previous? Like, let's say 6 months ago.
Personally, I'm doing a 2-hour show every single day, guaranteed. That can be 2 to 4 hours that I'm doing after I finish my work day and handle my clients and those who are running around here. Like, after we're done with Vidcon, I'm gonna do a show tonight. So I have allowed myself to do a 2-hour show with that, and all my clients do between a 2 to 6 hour show every single day in addition to their VOD content.
And it's helped them grow their audiences.
Oh, it's as far as scaling our businesses, if I think in terms of growing audience, it's not a matter of, well, one, subscribers mean nothing. It's one potential eyeball that can maybe watch your content. I can't be reliant on that. If I look at the growing of audience, I'm saying it's a growth of a genuine audience base. Even if some of my clients have 150 concurrents, which is low on Twitch, that 150 individuals make us more money than a single video upload on YouTube. So it's far more valuable in that growth path.
So it really is about the authentic audiences as you continue to grow, because they want to see those real moments as it's happening.
Yes, and if you look at VOD content on YouTube, the reason why, let's say, for example, a lot of folks follow the teen vloggers, and when you ask their mothers or the girls, why do you watch them? I find them relatable. Well, great, but you're being fed effectively a screen that's pseudo-talking to you. They want the experience that can genuinely talk to somebody, and this is the opportunity to do so, and build an actual relationship as opposed to a megaphoning experience. So it's just like conversation versus megaphoning is a big thing for me. It's just like YouTube, currently, megaphoning. Live, actual conversation that results in better conversion.
What about you, Wally?
So for us, I mean, live is absolutely sort of a growth format for us. We're always constantly thinking about ways and looking at the data, how can we increase our total content output across several core formats that we find is the most important to service. And live, for us, becomes a little less about the direct communication and everything that John said, which is immensely accurate for personality-driven and individual-driven, strategies. But for us, for Now This, for instance, or a Seeker, we're going live with the launch of a SpaceX, shuttle that is incredibly relevant to that audience, because this is, it's a science thing, but it's almost like a breaking news type thing, which is what Now This will do whenever certain newsmakers are doing something live, press conferences or stuff like that. Now This is doing a really good job of covering that and putting that as part of their sort of regular content.
So you're not really programming toward that with, like looking at programming with an eye on what are things that people want to tune in for, engage with, and have a conversation around, right?
Yeah, I mean, and a big thing with live, and one of the reasons why it works so well, is because right now all of the platforms are very covetous of being good at live.
Right.
It's something they really want, and so one of the most important things as you're building a strategy for anything on any platform is think about it as servicing them, not necessarily your fans. There's ways to service your fans in your conversation and in delivering good content, but when it comes to your strategy and what you're putting out there, you're really trying to say, what is Facebook's algorithm going to think of this? What is YouTube's algorithm going to think of this? And they love live, and so you want to lean into that when that's a priority for them. And think of innovative ways to do it too. Like this is something that Now This is experimenting right now, a live stream that's essentially like a trivia. There's no host, there's no nothing, it's just questions that come up with some pleasant music. I believe our sports vertical did it, and it worked really well because it's interesting, it's engaging. People will watch a little longer to see the next answer, and like, all right, we'll see the next question. All right, I'll see the next answer, and it worked to build out a little bit of an audience. And I think that that's an iteration of it. And I think we can keep exploring new ways to.
I think formats are definitely evolving, given that now especially with 5G becoming, like live content and live experiences can really be shared sort of across all the platforms. I mean, one of the things that we're seeing right now with MobCam in particular is that the folks who have tested it out, I mean, they're using it across 4 to 5 social platforms, going live, and then being able to interact and engage with all those audiences in real time. For the first time, they feel like they actually have a sort of cohesive conversation, right? I mean, I think what you're doing is absolutely fantastic, especially with the programming side too.
Yeah, and I think it's just using the form in a lot of ways. I mean, you kind of, it's a microcosm for, like, if you look at television. Early television was a lot of just a person on a stage live because they didn't really know how to do anything else, and they were talking. It was personality driven. Then they figured out, okay, we can live broadcast recorded things, and it's still in that same form and function. So, like, one of the things I did when I was at Jash was we were experimenting with TJIF thing, Jash It's Friday. It was a lunch break where we would take an hour's worth of our content and just live stream it. So it was through the form and function, but it was sort of a hosted event where we're like, oh, these are the comedians today that are the most, someone's in the news, there's a breakout, let's bring that old video up and let's watch it. Let's premiere new stuff a day early on this thing. And that ended up iterating into a full 24/7 channel that we were able to put together against 200 hours of content. Like, because there were interesting ways that we learned how to do that, and so that's the power of experimenting with live, is because, you know, it's more than just, you know, someone's pointing a camera at you and it's physically live. That's a great start, and really the core of it right now as we're growing. But this is the beginning, and the function of that directly driving content to someone's eyeballs in a non-on-demand sort of way is really a big growth area in social content.
That makes sense.
I will add to that. It's just like, check out the Always On section on Twitch. There's a few others who are doing this as well. It's just like, for example, you can tune into Buzzer and you can watch game shows from the 70s. And they have a whole variety of them, and I just find myself turning into that type of mode. If you look at, I think Pet Collective did 24/7 streams. Fail Army has all of their fail videos running at this point. If you have thousands of assets that you're sitting on, just place it into a 24/7 cycle and just broadcast it outwards. You will find that the hundreds of viewers will come in at any given point just to sit and watch, and they will build their own memes and broadcast happening during that. So if you have a lot of assets, that is a strategy you should apply.
What do you think, John?
Yeah, so it's interesting. Again, we see things through the prism of technology, measurement, and obviously, you know, our focus being on the brand and integration side. So there's all these really powerful anecdotes that are coming through about the power of live, and, you know, our agency and advertiser clients are turning to us and asking us, how do you quantify that? And I think that's something we're really working on, is how do we, you know, convey the power of a live concurrent video view, or the, you know, the effectiveness of that content into something that can be measured in a standardized way. And that's something as a company at Creator IQ that we are really diligently working on, and we have to, because this, you know, format is evolving so quickly. Brands want to invest more, they want to participate.
Are you seeing more content like being added into all these platforms, and are you seeing more engagement in audiences?
Absolutely. I mean, we work with a publisher, National Geographic. They do some incredible integration campaigns with their photographers. When they're out on a shoot, they're adding in the live content. So whereas before they would just have the finished product, live is a way to kind of like show the evolution. You could only have been afforded with when you're going live.
And Amatiana, are you?
They said all the things. I got a couple things. So when I first started broadcasting, I would do anywhere from like 5 to 10 hours a day, because I wanted to understand it. I wanted to get to know it. I wanted to figure out how it worked. I wanted to test out different platforms, because there is a different platform for different kinds of people, for sure, which is what I love about this, is like when people came together, I had like my family, my mom watching from Facebook, I had my fans from Live Me watching from YouTube, you know, I had people I haven't talked to in like forever, ever watching from Twitch. It's crazy. And I've noticed that over time, that number, like the number of hours has lessened. It's probably a little bit more on the smaller end of the scale, just because now my focus and what I'm doing isn't so much about just going live and figuring it out. It's about actually developing the content. So the time that I'm putting into it is, you know, planning, like producing, writing the scripts, you know, doing research, looking at analytics, figuring out exactly what I want to do for my shows. Because I think that, to touch on what Wally said with like the formatting, is like there's certain things that we are already accustomed to and used to. Like, so for instance, I may take 3 hours to go through and watch American Idol and watch The Voice and watch all of these shows, so I can go and see what they're doing with their formula and see what about that would be applicable to live, and how to use that and use the functions on our app so that I can run this talent-based show already utilizing the triggers in your head. You're like, oh, I love this, you know, like I'm already used to this, but now it's the added excitement of being able to do that live. So I still think I would put in like 40, 50, 60 hours, but it's not necessarily live hours anymore. It's creating that content, and I think it's really important to do that because so many people are live now. You can't just go on and be like, hi, you know, I used to do my makeup on live, you know, I used when like nobody cared, it was like, it was exciting, like I'm doing my makeup, and now it's like, if I don't have, you know, a fully fleshed out, intricate show, it's people turn away sometimes because the expectations are getting so much higher because people are putting in work.
That is incredible. I mean, the fact that you're looking at analytics, you're thinking about what the show and scripting format is, what you're testing out. I mean, it actually brings up the next question, which is like, what are your biggest learnings so far in doing live content and then sort of establishing this with your audience?
The biggest thing for me is it's like you have to do everything. And you don't have to do anything. You can do whatever you want to, you know. But I think in turn for me, personally, in order to be successful, like I did it opposite, right? Like I really started going in on live content, and now I have to pull back. Like I took a month off between playlists and VidCon, which is amazing. I don't know if you can do that as a YouTuber, but I was like, guys, I'll be back in a month and a half because I want to plan some really, really awesome things for you. And a part of the things that I've been planning is actual video content, because now that I've got the live thing down, they're like, okay, where's the music? Where's the videos? Why aren't you posting on Instagram? So like, it is going to be a part of the wheelhouse, and I definitely think from what I've learned in my experience is everything is going to flow into everything else anyway, which is why this is so friggin' awesome.
Awesome. John, so what's your biggest learning so far, looking at it from an ecosystem perspective across all platforms?
Well, I think, you know, it all comes down to when you're doing live content, there's always been this apprehension for brands to let creators control the messaging, right? And so imagine that apprehension when you're talking about a post that you can approve and, you know, ahead of time. Now when you're talking about live, they're taking the next leap and saying, you know, this is gonna all happen in real time, and I have to trust that trust the creator that I'm working with, and trust that, you know, they understand what I'm trying to convey, but also that they know their audience best, and they're gonna help me the most if I give them the most control. And so we're seeing a shift of this, you know, this kind of thinking that is really enabling content creators to do what they do best, which is create content, and doing that on behalf of brands, and that's enabling more and more advertisers to kind of, you know, jump into the live space.
That's great. Wally?
I would ditto the both of you, and then say something different for variety's sake. I think, well, my biggest sort of learning with live is just how it enhances the conversational nature of an already incredibly conversational platform and area and industry. And more than anything else, I think that, you know, I kind of had a little bit of an epiphany when I was just at work, looking at my Facebook for work, and seeing a feed of some friends of mine playing a video game. And I stopped and I watched it for a little bit because they do live streaming, and it was like I was hanging out with them like we do when we're at their house, and it's a very similar sort of thing. And so I think that there's a lot of times that people get really scared about how in-depth into the world in people's phones and not in the real world. But there's generations growing up that are doing the same things that we used to do, playing video games with their friends, watching the best of our friends play for too long because he won't die in Mario Brothers. And that's happening still. And live is sort of the natural
intimacy, right? You get a chance to actually like hang out with your friends.
Absolutely, and people would all have been saying that about online video for a decade now, and it's true in a larger sense. But live is the perfect extension where it's not just watching someone do that, but you can have that conversation. You can say, oh, you missed that block back there, and they're like, oh man, you're right, you know, so-and-so 35, I missed that block back there. And you can develop relationships, and Twitch is actually really great with that, because then the community develops, and then, you know, you can set mods up that can control that art like super fans, and so people really feel connected and engaged to the content. And so I think anywhere that you can use live in any of its form, and I'm a big advocate for trying something new and doing something different with this format, so you get the value, but you can brave new ground. The core thing that we're always going to get out of it is that extra engagement that you're getting in those comments. And to what John was saying, like that 150 people, if that's your concurrence, those are the most beautiful 150 people in the world, because they're the people that really care. And if you can service them, then you grow that audience, then that's the one that'll make you a career superstar, not the stuff that the algorithm gives you, which is nice, but you know, that's a billboard for you. That's the real home of your fan base.
I'd say the biggest learning for me is like when we saw that schedule, the creator schedule that you put up on the board, I had a little bit of PTSD because I remember doing that for 5 years full time. I'm just like, crap, I gotta do this now, I gotta do this now, I gotta do this now. And I talk to my clients every single day and they're stuck in that same grind. And when we're looking at the changes on YouTube, the changes on Facebook, all these factors, I have to figure out a way to, one, make their schedules more efficient and find a way that I can repurpose content more effectively. So what I look at doing now is, okay, so if we have a format that we're going to execute, let's just say it's a reaction to blank. Okay, we have a React series that we're going to be doing. Let's broadcast that first live on Twitch. We're going to fully monetize that because it's in 720 or 1080p. It's going to be true HD. Great. We're downloading that asset. We're going to take that reaction. We're going to take the audio only. Great. I can sell a sponsor against that audio only portion. I'm going to distribute that through SoundCloud, iTunes, etc. I'm also going to take the highlights from that broadcast and cut those down, toss them onto YouTube as a VOD. So from a 1 hour broadcast, I've now monetized 3 different ways.
Yield
across multiple platforms.
optimization.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So it's cutting down my workflow from being, okay, 6 hours cutting down a video. Okay, gotta do my live stream. No, I'm gonna do live, cut it down, and repurpose it elsewhere.
Wow, that is really smart. So one question. So I'm gonna actually jump over to this side, Amber Tiana. I know that there's a love-hate relationship with Snapchat.
Hi.
All right, so let's talk about like Snapchat and stories on Instagram, for an example. What do you think about that versus live? Because I mean, like that, it's a little bit of a curated experience.
Right, yeah, it's, the thing about live, I mean, it's awesome and it's great to get that like short form storytelling and to utilize people's, you know, goldfish brains, even though I think that was proven wrong. I think they have longer memories than us now, whatever. I think that it's cool and it's great and I definitely use it. And second to going live, it's probably like my favorite function on any, like on Instagram, on like an app. Like I like going live. Second thing I like to do is do rants and curate stories on Instagram, you know, utilizing the different functions, utilizing the polls, utilizing the GIFs, utilizing all that stuff. It's very, very fun. But then I find myself like going back and being like, okay, how many people viewed my stories? Does anyone respond to that? Does anybody think it's funny? And I'm still doing that like 2-3 hours later, and I don't get that real-time reaction. I don't get that real-time conversation. One of the things that I think is the most beautiful things about live is you have an opportunity to do an immediate call to action. So if I post on Instagram and I'm like, hey, you know there's children at the border who have been separated from their families. You can choose to ignore that, or scroll past, or like tap and be like, I don't want to see this, I don't want to see this. But if I'm live, I'm like, hey, what's up guys? You know what's going on? Just to kind of see you in the comment below if you know what's going on. And I feel like people, even if they might be a little embarrassed or whatever, they'll sit there and they'll listen. And it's different having a real audience in front of you who you can utilize that immediate call to action. I like instant gratification. I'm a millennial, so.
So John, what are you seeing as far as you know, Instagram stories versus what you're seeing in live? Like,
Yeah, so I think going back to what I was saying earlier, Instagram stories is actually a good you know, it's kind of like the training wheels to live, because if you're a brand and you're willing, you know, a lot of brands, what they're doing now is they're inviting influencers to events, you know, car companies giving influencer cars to come to like Fashion Week, and, you know, this creates this whole different genre of content that they can upload to Instagram stories. And as brands become comfortable with that and giving influencers kind of that power and having that ephemeral content, it's like a stepping stone to live, because it's like a little easier to do, and once you see the success of it, you're like, all right, now I want to go full into it. So we see kind of that's as Instagram Stories is really getting very popular now. I think that is a indicator that live is going to really continue to grow. And
I've never thought about it that way. Really, they're training wheels for live. That's pretty cool. Wally, what do you think?
Yeah, I think that you're exactly right in that it ticks a lot of very similar boxes to what your live sort of thing becomes. I mean, it's kind of that bridge sort of format where, you know, it isn't quite, you know, tightly, perfectly put together on demand or sort of photo and video-based content, but you're telling a very linear story and you're doing a very linear experience with that. That's what kind of live is all about. It's sort of like this happens and this happens, this happens. Oh, can I go back? I mean, yeah, you can technically go back, but that's where it's the training wheels. In live, it just is. And I also think that the sort of temporary and fleeting nature of stories was a really smart addition in there, because I think it allows people to be a little more expressive, a little more experimenting. And that's another key cornerstone with live, because if you do something wrong, and well, that was then, and you know it's not really out there anymore.
That's true.
And so I think that's really opening up a lot of creativity in the space, and particularly, you know, to bring it back to sort of what Group 9 is doing, like I love to look at the sort of story-based activations for, you know, the Dodo and Seeker with science stuff. Like there's a lot of really intelligent, you know, information that they're giving, but in a fun format that younger people are more used to, and that then, you know, it's almost like, you know, where like the Bill Nyes and the Beekman's worlds were when I was growing up, you know, but this is now that sort of thing. You know, the brands are these personalities and they're putting it out there, and it's really all the different formats, but I really like how stories sort of sits kind of as a way to bridge and make everything kind of feel like it's on the same circle. It's just where are you, you know, at this point in time.
I was just saying, I'm very glad I'm in an audience that would know what Beekman's World is. Oh, here's the other one. All of these platforms, I think, serve different segments of our audience bases. So I don't look at Instagram stories as in any way competition with live. I don't look at, you know, what you're doing on Facebook or what you're doing on YouTube in any competition with each of them. Instagram stories is a segment or a look into like my personal behavior. My Instagram feed is my magazine, so it's my most perfected self. YouTube is just cut down VOD content, either playing into an algorithm or based on a format of which I want to be passionate about. Live is ultimately that in just a live version of it. So I don't see any competition between any of them, to be honest. They serve different segments of each of my clients' bases, including my own. So yeah, I don't see any competition anyway.
Awesome. All right, so we're starting to run out of time here. I'm going to go with one last question here. For each of you, it's 2020, right? You're looking at sort of how you're generating revenue for your clients, as the ecosystem as a whole, for Group 9, for yourself as you expand your brand. Stack rank them for me. Where do you think your number one revenue source is going to come from? Where your number 2 or your number 3? Platform-wise, company-wise, how you're thinking about it?
I've already seen majority of revenue for my clients right now is coming through Twitch, through direct donations, through direct subscription support, whereas I used to be nearly entirely reliant on an AdSense model. I no longer care about ads, to be honest. Direct sponsorships, direct integrations, direct commercial partnerships, endorsements, that is where our clients make the most. But when it comes to platforms, Twitch is honestly making far more revenue than YouTube has.
I think it's a very diverse revenue stream. I think for a particular publisher like Group 9, you look at the intellectual property in different sort of formats that can go. We had our first sort of linear television show with the Dodo Heroes on Animal Planet. You know, different activations like that are natural extensions of the audience that can go into what seemingly are more premium areas. I think that's a path that's always being forged in this sort of world. I think that, you know, elusive TV money that everyone keeps saying is coming into the ad game will only come through scarcity of inventory, and that is just antithetical to the idea of these platforms of openness and everyone can do it. And so I think that there will be an understanding and a reckoning with that, and there will be places where scarcity can allow that kind of advertising revenue to come into place. I think digital linear is something that's going to be interesting in the next, by 2020, where, you know, it's like your YouTube TVs and your PlayStation views and all that stuff, where they're doing skinny bundles. You're going to start seeing digital native channels, essentially, and that's going to provide scarcity of inventory because there's only one commercial break.
And there's actual tune-in for the very first time, right?
Yeah, and what's great is I think that's where the evolution of live goes. because that is essentially live. A linear presentation is a live presentation, regardless of if it's a pre-recorded piece you're watching. So I think that it's really about diversifying it across the board. I think that if anyone can take anything away from just all of VidCon is right now, any ad revenue coming from platforms, you look at it like gravy. Like even with us, we make a lot because of the scale that we do, but if we're gonna make a sustainable long-term business model, that's gotta be gravy. Everything else comes in that we can then control and monetize in a lot of different ways.
Excellent.
Yeah, I would echo John and Jonathan's statements. I think you're right. There's going to be, we see brands and advertisers yearning to work closer with the creative partners, and as there are more ways to measure that, map back to attribution, which is like platforms like ours are working on, that's just going to open up those budgets even more.
So you think TV dollars will shift in the activation, live content, and
absolutely
exploration space?
Jonathan pointed out there are two modes for TV right now: concurrent viewers and this idea of scarcity. And so, as you have appointment viewing coming to live, like you're now giving TV, you're backing them up into a wall, and you're giving them very comparable.
That's a really interesting point, actually. I mean, if you guys think about what's happening right now when you're watching live content, I mean, this is the very first time in which you're actually controlling what you actually tune into outside of your VOD content consumption, right? So, I mean, this is actually the very first time you're actually activating your own personal prime time. There is something to be said for that, where you choose what you want to tune into at the time when it's actually live. So that's fascinating. So, Amber, Tiana, what do you think?
Yeah, same, but to echo, hi, from Pop Shop, oh my gosh, how exciting. You were texting me, my bad, sorry, distraction. I see myself being able to do things like that on my show because it's my freaking show. And definitely people like, it's so exciting. And I just specifically from like the creator or like the content or like the performer side of it, I definitely see more things that you would see in traditional TV like happening, like less and less. I think it's gonna be from inside of my room. And if it is, it's going to be inside of my room in front of my green screen at my desk that I've created in this very 3D way that's very, very nice and polished. It's going to be, we're live from the red carpet, we're live on this Good Morning Talk show, we're live, and it is a live competition. We're not going to edit it to make this person seem like the better singer or the worst singer because it's live. And I definitely look forward to that because when it's live, you can't lie. And I think it's definitely going to thin out the talent pool.
Excellent. Thank you so much. Well, guys, let's give the panelists a round of applause. Thank you guys so much for showing up.